Come, let us explore the first verse of the Great Potentiality, a Dzogchen classic. This was composed many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer of the Swat Valley, Prahevajra. This morning, we're going to chant this 12 times. After every 3 repetitions, we'll pause for explanation. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality. Oh, I forgot a mark. Insert. Here we go. Consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of the original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? Second repetition. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? Now for a bit of the old explanation. So from the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. So sphere of reality is a deliciously poetic way of describing, in this context, anything that could be perceived. Any sight, any sound, any sensation, any flavor, any scent, any emotion, any intention, any thought, any memory, any imagining. All those things consists of the outer, sight, sound, sensations, flavors, and scents, and the inner, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So we'll explain this after 3 more repetitions. Together. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? As promised, let us now, I'd like to offer an explanation of this page. What is meant here by perfect purity is not a reference to whether things are pretty or ugly, melodious or discordant, pleasurable or painful, delicious or disgusting, fragrant or foul. What is meant by purity? Many centuries ago, the great South Indian Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna reminded us that there is the conventional that we experience during each inhalation, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system. And the ultimate, that which we experience during each exhalation due to our parasympathetic nervous system. As we inhale, we're wired to practice mindfulness. As we inhale, this sympathetic nervous system helps us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. The full spectrum of experience, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. However, every time we exhale, we're wired to practice meditation, which is simply physically relaxing and mentally releasing to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining, at least until we breathe in once again and the cycle begins again, or repeats. As we breathe in, we perceive the infinite variety of experience. As we relax into our exhalation, everything begins to feel as if it's melting into a gently pleasant non-graspability. This is the basis of the experience of non-duality, or often simply less duality. Let's return to the previous text. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So this is a classical dichotomy. This is a classical duality. There are many people who have been conditioned to be elitist and controlling. Many of them are sincere, true believers. Some of them know they're full of malarkey, and they know they are speaking nonsense for the purpose of manipulating others to gain power, prestige, and wealth. These are the people who move the goalposts. These are the people who say enlightenment is impossible to attain, especially for you. And if you were to try to do it, they would take a length of time greater than the generation, sustenance, dissolution, and gap between 3 universes. That's called Arakalpa. And that's nothing more than patriarchy saying, shut up, sit down, don't dream big. On the other hand, we had the Buddha, who said, dude, you can master my path in as little as a week. You, not the guy behind you, you. But there is this illusion of duality. And one of the radical things taught by a minority of meditation teachers, including the Buddha, is that for those of us who are defined by our practice of mindfulness and meditation, as we breathe in, we might see a distinction between Buddhas and people who are not Buddhas. However, as we relax into our exhalation, that distinction becomes less distinct and less tangible and less defining. And after 3 more repetitions, I will explain this final bit together. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? Welcome to the live stream. We are exploring an explanation of the first verse of the Great Potentiality, a Dzogchen classic. Dzogchen refers, or can refer, to a minority of Buddhist practices that focus chiefly on mindfulness and meditation and dispense with mythology and ritual. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? We are raised, most of us, in societies that condition us to believe that we're bad and that we're not good enough. We are conditioned to be slaves of duality, to forget that both beauty and ugliness are simply sights, to forget that harmony and discord are both just sounds, to forget that pleasure and pain are both just sensations, to forget that the delicious and disgusting are both just tastes, to forget that the fragrant and the foul are both just scents. We're not being asked to lobotomize ourselves and cease to notice the world around us. Allow me to share with you an illustration. I'm going to tap button 9. Every time we breathe in, our sympathetic nervous system has already evolved to notice all manner of phenomena, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Every time we exhale, our parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to physically relax and mentally release. That is the key to non-duality. Whatever pleasurable or painful emotions we notice as we breathe in, relax into the non-duality of just emotions as we breathe out. Whatever kind or cruel intentions we feel emanating from our own heart as we breathe in, melt into the simplicity of just intention as we breathe out. Now, we might say, how can that stop me from being an evil bastard? How can that stop me from giving in to my cowardice or my rage or my greed or my hate? I'm currently sitting in sunny Southern California, in the North American country known as the United States of America, that has gone from slowly, politely creeping into fascism to just enthusiastically sprinting into a sequel to the Third Reich, where things are very scary, where greedy people hire cruel people to do horrible things to innocent people. But the thing is, when we cooperate with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, and we see all the inner ugliness within ourselves during our inhalation, during our exhalation, as we relax, though it is as if those beasts have been defanged and declawed and tamed. A delightful example of this principle is found in sexual tantra. Many men are eager to learn how to prolong the active life, so they won't be a two-stroke chump. And as I say life, I meant love. Prolong the act of love without premature ejaculation. And the answer is simple. As you breathe in, notice the sensations in your body, yes, the tingly, blissful ones. As you breathe out, stop what you're doing and relax. That stops premature ejaculation. That exact same method can help us to notice our rage without giving into it, making a tragic choice or utterance or action. That same thing, that same mechanism can help us to notice the despair in our heart while also helping us to free us from its tyranny, not its presence, but it's control over our choices, utterances, and deeds. So whatever rage or terror or despair or peace or bliss we experience in its entirety or even fractionally, we can notice and release naturally and effortlessly, because these mechanisms of our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, these two facets of our autonomic nervous system, the same autonomic nervous system that the ancients described as our Buddha nature, is always present. As long as we are alive, as long as we have a spinal cord, we are capable of practicing this mindfulness and this meditation passively and randomly, automatically and effortlessly. So there is no need for contrivance. There is no need for paths of purity. Once again, the terrible men with big pencils and small penises whose entire identity is defined by puffing themselves up and demeaning others, disempowering others, will say, yes, you can accomplish enlightenment, you just need to work through this intense outline. And they might call it a path of purity, they might call it a long room, they might call it a ngondro. These people are always moving the goalposts. But the Buddha taught that enlightenment was simply getting so good at the Eightfold Path that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, and that could be accomplished in as little as a week, and that the force that drives that is simply cooperating, passively cooperating with our natural faculties to notice and relax in harmony with each inhalation and exhalation. Let's switch pages. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? We breathe in and notice the outer and the inner, and that happens automatically. We breathe out and we relax our resistance to the present moment, be it glorious or be it grotesque. There's a wonderful line delivered by a wonderful actor who was in the star of Boardwalk Empire. His name eludes me right now. If you remember his name, please type it in the chat window. But he delivered it in a Michael Bay movie, of all things. And I think it was Armageddon? I'm not sure. We're going back to the 90s for this one. But he's tied to a chair, having lost his mind, he cackles and proclaims, "Embrace the nightmare." So, as we breathe in, sometimes we perceive a dream, and sometimes we perceive a nightmare. But as we breathe out, we release whatever it is we perceived, or emoted, or intended, or reasoned, or recalled, or imagined. That's why the Buddha taught a sudden path, an easy path. And that is why there are many, many nicknames for enlightenment, including nothing special. So if you have any questions about this morning's lesson, type them as specifically as you can in the chat window, while the rest of us chant this first verse for 3 more repetitions. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. Sentient means entity with a mind. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? Arguably, a sentient being is anything that, for instance, has an intention, who wants to live and not die, who wants to be happy and not sorrow, who can notice hunger and want to do something about it. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? If you're as big a geek as myself, and you've enjoyed perhaps Star Trek Deep Space Nine, there was an ongoing storyline about, I think her name was Kai Wynn, and she was a villain in ecclesiastical garb, who did all these horrible, cruel, selfish things with pious-sounding justifications. And that type of villain is not unique to that particular corner of the Star Trek universe. Wherever there are humans, there are going to be some villains. Some accidental, some deliberate. And within each of our hearts is that potentiality that we can notice and release in harmony with our breathing. Final repetition. From the very beginning, the sphere of reality consists of everything that is outer and inner. In this dimension of original perfect purity, there is no distinction between the Buddhas and the merely sentient beings. So how could there be anything that needs to be corrected with paths and antidotes? Having completed our opening lesson, we could now shift gears, or try to shift gears. It is Ahsoka Tano Thursday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Someday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's play with the latest iteration of very easy meditation practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. So just like we mentioned, the key, we didn't mention that, the key to mindfulness is our sympathetic nervous system. Key to meditation is our parasympathetic nervous system, and we have a choice. We can actively compete against them, or we can passively cooperate with them. The key to this passive cooperation is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this each time we feel air enter our nostrils, and silently as well as mentally recite the one-syllable verbies each time we feel air exit our nostril. We could do this while lying on our side. We can do this while walking around the block. We can do this while sitting as sustainably as we can. Let us practice together right now. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions approximately every 13 minutes or so. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class as well as group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.